Hi, I'm Christian. I was wondering, how many of you have something that you absolutely treasure? Something that means the world to you. It can be a toy or a small gem or something you picked up somewhere that simply means a lot to you. For instance, I remember when I finished grade 8 and my parents bought me an electric guitar. I loved this thing so much and it's still in my bedroom today. Today's big idea is, Jesus sees value in all people. And I was wondering, do we value all people as much and more than the things that are super special to us? Let's watch our God story and learn more about that.
Okay, fun fact and a very encouraging one. If you were born today, you can expect to live maybe 81 years before you die. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Jimmy here with you again. When I was in high school, I was an athlete. I loved playing sports. I was pretty good at sports. And I remember this time I got invited to try out for our junior varsity basketball team. And I remember thinking that would be so fun. And I thought I was kind of a shoo-in. And so I made the first cut and then I made the second cut. And so the third cut was basically a big game, a scrimmage. And I was lined up against this guy named Trevor. So I remember thinking at the time, I am going to light this kid up like a Christmas tree. I'll be faster, stronger, a better shooter, more agile. I'll get around him, no problem. And guess what happened? Trevor could shoot the lights out. And so anytime I would go for the ball from him, his hands were faster and he would jack a 3 on me. Anytime that I would try to get around him, he had these cat-like reflexes and would take the ball from me. And I remember at halftime just thinking, Trevor, buddy, I'm so sorry. I judged you so harshly. I thought you were something that you are definitely not. You are a fantastic basketball player. And guess what ended up happening? I got cut from the team and Trevor made it. And so this leads us to today's big idea, and that's that Jesus sees value in all people. And so Jesus is traveling around with his disciples, teaching people, helping them to understand how the kingdom of God continues to expand. And then we pick it up, and the title is actually The Greatest in the Kingdom. And so after they arrived at Capernaum and settled in a house, Jesus asked his disciples, "What are you discussing out on the road?" But they didn't answer because they'd been arguing actually about which of them was the greatest. And he sat down and he called the 12 disciples over to him and he said, "Whoever wants to be first must take last place and be the servant of everyone else." And so then he put a little child among them, and taking the child in his arms, he said to them, "Anyone who welcomes a little child like this on my behalf welcomes me. And anyone who welcomes me welcomes not only me, but also my Father who sent me." So Jesus brings this closer pocket of people. There's a crowd that's around and he calls his 12 disciples and says, "What are you talking about?" And then they're a little "Oh, I think we've been caught." Well, we're kind of talking about who may or may not be the greatest among us. And Jesus gets right to the point. And he takes a child and he puts the child in front of them. And then he brings the child and puts his arms around this child and tells them, if you want to know who is the greatest, take cues from this little kid. Whoever wants to be first must be last. Last doesn't mean worst, it means willing to serve, willing to care, willing to put your own desires to the back burner for the sake of somebody else. Now, in our context today, when we think of babies and kids and children, we're like, oh, isn't she, he, they cute? In this context, not so much. You see, kids were unimportant. And so for Jesus to take a child, just like some random kid, and put it in front of these disciples who are thinking they're the best and say, this kid is the best. Do you want to learn what best looks like? It's this right here. The lowest of the low, being willing to humble yourself to the nth degree to show people what God's love looks like. And this is the message of Jesus. We shouldn't see ourselves as more important, but see everybody as equally important, because there are no unimportant people in the economy of God. Yes, that's the message of Jesus to these people. And that's the message of Jesus to us today. Now, maybe in your context, you tend to stray away from the people who are maybe less cool than you. Maybe you avoid people who are maybe a little bit more awkward than maybe you think you are. Maybe you tend to not eat lunch with the people that you feel like you don't have anything in common with. You are important to God, and so is everyone else. Again, today's big idea is that Jesus sees value in all people. And so today, my hope, my prayer is that you will lead from the back, that you will help people get into the arms of God, not be excluded by religion or culture. May you and may I be somebody who reflects the image of God to everyone, knowing that everybody is important to God. May we take up our mantle, the notion of that we are deeply and wonderfully loved kids, children of God, all in this together, showing God's kingdom, God's love throughout the world. May you include people today because everybody is important, everybody has value. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and this is Jimmy signing off. Peace.
Wow, that was powerful. Jesus says everyone who wants to be first must be last. And Jesus himself wanted to spend time with the children who, in those days, were not very important in society. We asked some friends who they know, who really live humble lives, people who don't boast or try to be first, and who serve and value others. Check this out.
I met up with a few friends to ask them some questions about humility.
Humility to me is like zooming out of your own life and seeing God's bigger picture. So it's not underselling yourself, it's not thinking that you don't have a place, but it's also not thinking that you're the most important person. It's really seeing the bigger picture and your part to play in it.
Humility is when you don't define yourself by your accomplishments or what you've done.
The person that exemplifies humility best to me is my mom. She's the president of a national prison ministry, and it's their job to introduce prisoners to Jesus. So she ends up working with thousands of people, important members of the community, hundreds of students and volunteers. She's such a team player. She's always willing to do any job from the biggest to the smallest, but she's also really good at making those tough decisions when they need to be made.
I think of one of my teachers when I was in Sunday school as a teenager, and he was really, really smart. But even though he was our teacher, he would always ask us what we thought and really listen to what we said and take our opinions seriously.
Most humble person I know is actually my grandfather. I call him Poppy, and he's an inventor and an engineer, and he just loves making things and giving them away, whether that's a rowing machine that he made of old desk parts or little windmills that he constructs. He just really enjoys doing it. He doesn't do it for the recognition. He just does it because he loves doing it and because he finds it fun.
The person that comes to mind is Deanna Baker. She is the host of my home church. One of her major gifts is hospitality, and she's always willing to help and available for people, to assist people when she can.
This humble person I know in my life is my friend, a really good friend. This person is humble because they always put the other person first. They enjoy making people happy. And first and foremost, they also like to encourage and appreciate everyone around them.
The most humble person I know is Mathura. She's a girl that's a student in my program at work, where we do coding or tech education. And Mathura is super intelligent and accomplished, has won multiple awards, including Google Scholar Award. Yet she doesn't brag about it, she doesn't need to talk about it or define herself by her awards and accomplishments. Instead, she is super humble and is mostly concerned about you when she's talking to you and about how you're doing.
My closest friend is the most humble person I know because she exhibits these characteristics day in and day out. For example, there was one occasion where she was going through the hardest time anyone has ever gone through, and she still made time for me and rejoiced in my success despite all the difficulties in her life at that time.
I would say my mother is the most humble person that I know. She spends a lot of time volunteering her time to sit with people at the hospital who are sick, spending time with people who maybe don't have family to be with them. And she would never, though, talk about it or brag about it. She just does it with her own time, and she's the most humble person that I know.
So when we think about what it means to be humble, the best example we have is Jesus. And it's amazing because Jesus is the king. He's the top, the most powerful, amazing person ever. And when he comes to the world, he doesn't come as a big, strong king authority, but as a friend and as someone who listens to us and as someone who's humble. And I think that's so amazing, and it's an example to us to live in the same way.
All those stories we heard were inspiring and great examples of how we can live. Jesus wants us to respect and love all people, no matter who they are, where they live, what job they have, what language they speak. He wants us to see value in every single person on earth and show his love to them. Let's break into our small groups and see what that looks like in our lives. Have fun.